Hello, this is Scott Herbst. I am founder and president of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are listening to or watching The Flex. This is a podcast where we have conversations with people who are expressing their leadership with the intention it open access to you expressing yours. Today on the show, I'm really excited to introduce you to Abiola Ahmed. Abiola is a BCBA and the owner of BNS Behavior Consultants. They are a company that provides clinic and home-based services to children with autism in Saskatchewan, Canada. And Abiola's got a story I found personally compelling. And so I'm really excited to have her here to share more of it and to share the story with our listeners as well. Abiola, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Scott. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure. So I just hyped your story a little bit. Will you tell a little bit about it? Really, I just want to give the prompt, tell us how you got to be where you are.
Okay. So, like he said, I'm a BCBA, but before I became a BCBA, it was quite a journey. So my story is the reason I got into ABA is a bit of a personal one. I have a son who is now 17 years old. He was diagnosed with autism back then, about 14 years ago. And in Nigeria, we just didn't know what to do. In fact, scratch that. He wasn't diagnosed. We saw some symptoms of autism, indicative of autism. We tried to go on Google to say, what might this be? We spoke to the doctor. They referred us to the ENT. They said they just wanted to check if there was something structurally wrong and that was preventing him from talking. We mentioned that we had Googled something and we saw autism, and it's like, God forbid, don't say it's autism. Autism is, you don't want to wish that on anyone. But then I knew there was something up, because back then and even up until now, a lot of stigmatization around the diagnosis of autism. Yeah. I'm coming from Nigeria, where we really have a religious orientation to things. They'll usually tell you things like, God forbid, no, don't say that about your own kid. It was as though you were being the bad parents for saying that about your own kid.
Right.
Fast forward to like 6 months later, I was fortunate to meet a lady who is a teacher. And she was back then teaching kids in preschool, and she had experience with that sort of thing and told us this is most likely autism, just go start therapy. So we got in contact with a speech therapist or a speech pathologist who then started providing services for us. And we were seeing some progress, but I felt like there should be more to be done. So I kept on digging. Yeah. Fortunately for me, when my son was about 5 years old, which is about, or was it 6? Yeah, like 11 years ago, I then heard of a group of people coming to Nigeria. We had a BCBA-D and a BCBA, the Nigerians, but we were staying in New Jersey at that time, and they just thought to disseminate ABA within the Nigerian population. So I was fortunate enough to be in contact with them and to learn what ABA was all about. That was in 2011, I think. After then, they just came, did a webinar. I'm like, there has to be more. So around 2013, they then got approval to be coursework providers, and then came with this BCBA coursework and whatnot. I got into ABA at the end of 2013, starting with my coursework in BCABA, and I haven't looked back till then. It did take me a while to become and I found it was life-changing, I must say, because I then started to use some of those principles with my son, and that was where the magic began to happen. So after I did my BCBA, ABA, it was difficult for me to move on to becoming a BCBA because I tried to get into master's programs in the USA, and I probably didn't know the right one to look for, but the couple of ones I could get in contact with, they told me I had to be resident in the USA before I could do my master's. So I just went into becoming, BCABA, not so bad, did my practicum. In 2017, I became a BCABA. I practiced in Nigeria for like 2 years, and then I relocated to Canada. And when I got to Canada, it was like a culture shock. Up until then, I'd only dealt with Nigerian kids, and now I just wanted to say, what's it like practicing ABA in Canada? The moment I got here, I got in contact with like the BCBA was in charge of a non-governmental organization run ABA program. I started working there as a behavior therapist, and she was quite helpful in settling me down and making me say, oh, and trying to compare how did you used to do things in Nigeria and how are we doing things there? Are they quite different? But I found out not a lot of difference, you know. And that was a good experience. I did that for 6 months, and I just knew I wanted to be more. Not a
Yeah.
lot of ABA clinics, BC ABAs might not have been able to practice. I wasn't able to practice at the level I felt like I should be practicing. So I just knew the next step would be for me to go get my master's. Luckily, I found a lady who was a good mentor, told me what school she attended and how it wasn't too expensive. I was quite conscious about the cost too, and how she had a good time there, which was Ball State University in Indiana. I did my master's there between 2020 and 2018 months, end of 2021. And then I had another challenge. My supervisor, who was my BCABA supervisor, so all of a sudden things weren't just working well between us. Like, she didn't have a lot of time to supervise me the way I wanted to. So I had to seek out another supervisor. So, which meant that I finished my master's before I did my practicum for my BCBA. And eventually, yeah, in 2024, I became a BCBA. So quite a journey, I must tell you.
Yeah. So this year you're a BCBA.
Last year, actually, 2024.
Oh, got it. Got it. I misheard.
Last
Okay.
year, March 2024. Yes.
Yep. Um, that's quite a journey. What had you, I'm curious why you left Nigeria and came to Canada.
For I think it was more of my husband who wanted to relocate. And being a family-oriented woman, a married woman with
Yeah.
kids, and it's usually traditional in Africa, like you go where your husband goes.
Yeah, sure.
So I really did not want to come to Canada, to be honest. But now I'm so glad I did for a lot of reasons. Because over there in Nigeria, we just had like two BCABAs and one person who had become BCBA, but then had moved to Kent to do her PhD program. So we just were like two BCABAs under the supervision of the same BCBA, and it was quite a lot for us to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I really didn't think I should move, but my husband, on the other hand, was working somewhere where he felt like, and it was just not that particular place he was working at that time. He just had like a series of jobs where he felt like constantly burnt out, you know.
Mm,
So he just felt like there has to be something better than this. Like,
yes.
he was literally not, I could manage my time. You know, I had like BTs, I was the BCAB, and then we had a BCBA. But for him, it was quite difficult for him to do that. He felt like he didn't have enough time for his family. If it wasn't the work itself, it was like horrible traffic in Lagos, Nigeria, where I stayed. It's known for horrible traffic. So he just felt there has to be something better than this. I want to relocate to another country. And that's how we came to Canada.
Wow, that's so brave.
Mhm.
And I mean, you've just had such an incredible journey that
Thank
along
you.
the way, um, I just appreciate one that you found behavior analysis on your own
I'm
and
so happy I did
were
too.
but pretty relentless in finding answers. I
Mm-hmm.
think if you had done what your environment was telling you to do, it would have
Mm-hmm.
been just kind of like, well, just ignore it and hope it go or pretend it's not there or um and you didn't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
and you adapted to a completely new country that you didn't really want to be.
Yeah.
Um but then not only that, but now you started a business in a
Mm-hmm.
country where you said it yourself, customs are kind of different
Mm-hmm.
by like the culture shock from
Of
Nigeria
course,
to
yeah.
Canada. So I mean, I just imagine you've learned a ton along the way.
Yes, I have. I
Um,
have.
So, usually I like say, hey, tell me about this, tell me about this. What do you want to share?
I think I just want to share my story and whatever questions you ask me to tell you what part of the story. I will be willing to share that too.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
so
think
what
that
is probably if I said, Abiola, tell me like the one thing you've learned
okay, one
about.
thing I've learned is DIY.
Uh-huh.
I have learned to do a lot of skills by myself. And these days, other than just like, oh, I gotta do this, it was quite overwhelming at the beginning. I'm now embracing learning new skills every day. I take it as a challenge. So
Yeah.
a
So
bit of
what
background to that now.
awesome. Let's talk more about that because I know that
Yeah.
that's something that has stopped me from doing things that I might see possible. I know
Mm-hmm.
that's like other people get stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So in the face of something is like, whoa, over like I don't know where to start. I don't know how or get from here to there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
how have you managed that overwhelm? And
Yeah. Okay, that's a very good question because like I said, a bit of background to that. In Nigeria, you had like different people that could do different things for you. Labor was quite cheap. But over here in Canada, like I had a driver, I had someone who would man my gate, I had someone, a nanny who would take care of my kids. I had to start doing all of that. And on top of that, be a business owner. So
yes,
I did learn to prioritize, okay, what's more important to me. But at some point, especially when I became a BCBA, I suffered burnout. I felt like, oh my goodness, this is a lot. And one
yeah,
thing I did then, which I spoke to my husband about it, and he says, hey, I know you're a therapist yourself, but again, we have this package with where I work. It's called CBT. You could actually talk to someone who, who is qualified, and help you with your burnout. And I'm just like, maybe I should I? But the turning point for me was when I found that he had begun changing my I wouldn't want to use the word temperament, but maybe I'd start being a little bit short. Like I'll get easily upset because I was just like constantly burnt out, and then I'll not feel good. I'll go to the doctor and they'll say, nothing's wrong, you're just probably stressed. So I then said, okay, my aha moment, then I really have to go for the CBT.
uh-huh,
And talking with her initially was awkward, and she says to me, I know how it feels, for someone who provides therapy to be doing therapy. But again, you're human, you know. And of course, I'm happy to share some strategies with you that can help you deal with the burnout. So that was how I addressed the burnout.
awesome. I love that. I think again, I think this is a trap people fall into. It's a trap that I will fall into is
Mm,
my job is coaching, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and one thing it's easy for me to fall into as a coach is that I should have everything figured out.
mhm,
And and that does it can turn into I have a coach who I work with as well as like I make sure I get out there. And I think that's something I want people to take away is that, and I hear this from leaders over and over again, or people who are expressing their leadership, is that they have places, I would call it like, where are you going to go for your water?
exactly.
Like, where is your
Exactly.
well? Where do you have like, and it's not just like, oh, I make sure I take a bubble bath or, go, but it's like actually who are the people in your life that
Mhm,
powering you? And
mhm,
so I
exactly.
sharing that.
Thank you.
What are is there anything you learned in doing CBT that really you found profound
Yeah.
valuable?
Yes, yes, yes. So when I was speaking with the therapist, and one of the things I spoke to, I was like, I just feel like I'm alone doing all of these things. And she said, have you ever thought of asking for help? I'm like, it's
Mm,
true. I just like to take on everything.
uh-huh.
Maybe I should start. She said, have you thought of using the available resources? Have you
Yeah.
tried delegating a bit? Maybe like trusting your staff with a bit more, prioritizing your breaks. Okay, what's states like put in terms of priority, what's most important to you, and that's what you want to indeed prioritize. And then so it enabled me to take intentional and deliberate breaks. Like
Yeah.
on Wednesdays, for instance, the clinic isn't open. I'm not open to clients. I use it for my consultations. And if I don't have any consultation at that point, I rest. Don't
Yeah.
feel guilty about resting because I'm the type of person who just feels like I gotta be doing something at every point in time. Don't feel
Yeah.
guilty about resting. You've earned it, you deserve it. Learn to delegate. Yeah, and keeping a journal. Journaling was another quite interesting tip she's told me, she spoke to me about, and that has really been helpful.
How has that been helpful? I've never really consistently journaled, and I've heard from a lot of people that it is really they find it useful. How did you find it useful?
Yeah, I don't do it every day, but I found that when I feel a bit overwhelmed and I just have like all sorts of thoughts up here in my brain,
Mhm.
writing it down in a journal makes me feel like, oh, I've diffused the tension a bit. So it just makes me feel like, oh, okay, now I can like put perspective to things rather than just like have it crowded up in there. So that's how journaling has helped. I do not do a daily journal still,
Yeah.
but I found that when I feel like emotional overwhelm,
Yeah.
journaling helps me. Yeah.
And how do you journal?
So just like putting down my thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Initially, I'm just gonna put it all down. I don't
Just
actually
whatever comes to your mind, you write. Okay, wow.
whatever comes to my mind. I don't have a physical book journal. I use the notes on my phone.
Yeah.
So I just like type it all down and I begin to put some perspective into it. Then I
Uh-huh.
need to frame certain things, right? That, okay, no, maybe the way you're thinking about this isn't the way you should be thinking about it. Maybe it's not, maybe you just don't have to achieve this now. Maybe redefine what success would mean. Would success mean that a day typically went well, or maybe like in the next 1 week or in the next 2 weeks, redefine, reframe, and just take it from there. My initial copy
Yeah.
draft is really heavy. And then I start to analyze and just like,
Yeah,
re-
awesome. Let me hear if I'm let me see if I'm hearing you right. You
Mhm.
don't just write, but you actually look back and reflect on what you've written as well.
Of course, of
Okay,
course,
cool.
of
I
course.
think that's really helpful. It's really helpful
Mhm,
to me, to someone who hasn't journaled, doesn't really know.
mhm, mhm. It helps with the decluttering
Yeah.
and putting things into perspective.
Yeah. So it sounds like it gives you a little step back from your own thoughts
Exactly.
as a
Being
way
able
to
to-
maybe
Yeah.
see like, oh, is how I'm looking at
Mhm.
really working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Hmm.
Um, what has tell me what it's been like to open a business and people in a new country in a new place.
Yeah, opening a business, I would say I'm lucky to have met the supervisor I met after my master's program. My name is Brianna. Brianna was just such. She tells me I'm too kind when I use certain words like you're a rock star, you're my rock, or you're a gem. She's like, oh no, that's. But indeed, she's really been a good mentor to me. So I was kind of lost even when I'd finished my master's, and I thought, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
We don't really have ABA clinics here. What am I gonna do? I don't have my house there, so what am I gonna do? But in Saskatchewan, so when Brianna became my supervisor for BCABA, and um, even before I started the practicum for BCBA, she spoke to me and said to me that there is where I could register as an um, independent service provider because I was saying, I'm like, Brianna, I can't work with you over stuff. She said, I can't even pay you right now. And she says, okay, maybe just go on there, go see, go try to register your name and whatnot. So once I got there, I found out that I could register as a category B consultant who needed the supervision of a BCBA.
Okay.
So instead of working with Brianna, Brianna then would refer some clients to me to work
Yeah.
with, and then she would supervise. And So having to register on that, I needed like a trade name. I needed to set my own stuff up, blah, blah, blah. Of course, with
Uh-huh.
Brianna's guidance, mentorship, and supervision, it worked out quite well.
Mm. So you really, it was just really taking the next step
Yes.
and
Yeah.
taking the next step from there and taking the next step from there.
Next step from there and taking yes. So that's just how it's been for me. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard that from a lot of people, and it's worked out for me when I'm able to do it. That's another
Mhm.
thing that happens to me is that I tend to look at the like these giant goals, and I'll
The
see
big
a giant goal
picture.
and be like, whoa, and it's very
It
easy
feels
to turn away from
overwhelming,
that.
yeah.
But if I can say like, okay, well, what's like the first
Uh-huh.
thing I need to take a step toward? I'm like,
Exactly.
oh, okay. And then I take that step, and then that's when the next step becomes clear,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Um,
Remember when I talk about redefining success? So what's success for today? What's success in
mm,
1 week? What's success in like a month, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 5 years? So what would I consider a successful day today? So that's
oh,
how I redefine success. And it helps you not feel so pressured.
that's really great. I love that.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
thank you for underlining that.
Mhm.
Um, well, is there anything else you really want to share about what you've learned?
So what I've learned in this journey is to keep learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm open to learning. I'm open to taking on a new challenge. I try to have some people work on something on my website that says, yeah, 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 I feel like it's too expensive. I feel like they're just like not giving me what I want. I decided to learn that skill by myself.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a time I had issues with staffing. It was as though employing Gen Zs, I was in a different generation. I'm in a different generation, of course. And it was as though my mentality about things, my thinking about things didn't quite align well with that. So I had a lot of staff attrition. I did go to take a CEU on employing Gen Zs and retaining them.
Did that make a difference?
Yes.
What did you learn? I'm curious.
So I learned that the way they process things is different from the way the older generation would process things. And there's certain things that meant something to them that really didn't mean something. For us, work for me in my generation, and I don't know, maybe culturally, it might also be different from a lot of people listening, is that work is work. Work comes first before you don't give excuses, you don't do this, you don't do that. But for the
Yeah.
Gen Zs, they have certain things that are important to them. Maybe like sometimes they want to hang out with their friends, plan a trip with them. Sometimes they just want to do something. You might think it's flimsy, but it's a lot to them. So being able to provide those breaks when they need them, be flexible,
Yeah.
being flexible, and also understanding that their values are different from our values. So learning what their values are and like relating with them based off of what their values are. So in interviewing them and if the first few weeks on onboarding, I usually would have a conversation with them just to find out why are you doing this? What exactly are your values? Blah blah blah. And I'll try to relate with them based on whatever values I know
Yeah.
they
Well, and
have.
then how did that show up in how you interact with them and how you do work? And
Yeah. Also, they want to relate. I found that for especially from where I'm coming from, like respect is just like based off of your age, maybe blah blah. With Gen Zs, you have to earn your respect. They're not just gonna respect you because of your title
yeah,
or just because of your achievements or your age. You got to earn their respect. So learning to relate with them, respecting them too, not just like looking down on them, but just like knowing that they also deserve respect and being like a mentor to them, trying to understand them, trying to build them up. If they
yeah,
see that okay, there's something in the future, it looks like there's something in the future, there are certain skills I could be learning. I'm building myself up. They begin to see you as a mentor. And I've heard a lot of, so Abiola, you're my mentor. I'm just, oh, I'm
mm,
flattered. But in
yeah,
just cultivating that relationship with them, trying to relate in the way that they are acquainted with, we just
yeah.
like, yeah.
So it sounds like and correct me, but like I'm thinking about that really what you're doing here is you're kind of like doing like a preference assessment.
You
You know,
can call it that
like
in
it can
behavioral
be
terms.
like, but more like a preference assessment at a deeper level.
Exactly. What's
Really,
important to
like
you?
who are you? What's important to you? What do you
Exactly.
value?
What's
Versus
important to
just
you? Yeah. And let's see how
here's
we
a
can be
paycheck.
flexible to accommodate what's important to you.
Yeah. And awesome. Awesome. I think that's really valuable. I encourage that anyway, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because we are much more than I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like work can be much more than just coming in and pressing,
Exactly.
like get a
Exactly.
paycheck.
Exactly.
Work can be a real expression of like, well, who am I and what matters to me?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
connect, if I can connect at work to that, I'm going to be much more fulfilled and happy.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you're happy, you do well with your work. And it
Yeah.
just keeps building up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you love the people who are like providing that
Of
for
course, yeah. And everyone, they don't come to work for, oh gosh, I gotta go again. It's like I'm happy to be here.
you. Yes. Awesome. We are getting a little close to our allotted time. We talk a
Mhm.
bit about what's next, where you're headed next, how you're looking to grow and develop, what you're taking on in terms of your business and your learning.
Yeah, so for me, it's just to keep growing. My husband is sowing some seeds in my head. It's like, oh, do you know you could have different arms of business? You could even go franchise. I'm like, no, we don't do it. Just can't franchise to anyone. But
Uh,
I would say growth.
like growing
Growth,
as a
yeah,
business.
growth in terms of like capacity, size.
Yeah.
Some steps I've taken this year, which like I introduced other programs apart from my early interventions programs, like the school readiness programs, the social skill programs, stuff like that. So just like introducing more programs to the company, and we'll see how it goes from there, step by step.
Awesome. And how do you think you're going to have to grow your business?
So grow by learning. Like
Yep.
this is one thing I also tell my staff. I'm like, I'm a BCBA. I've been in this field for over 10 years. I'm still learning. I don't ever see myself like I've arrived.
Yes.
So I still relate with my mentors. I do, a lot of research. I've had people trying to pull me to come into research. Like I just learn every day. With learning would come like the next step I have to take. And if I feel, okay, this is what I want to do, I'm just going to go into research mode and really learn about that thing as much as I can learn.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I approach things. Thank you.
Awesome. I so appreciate your time and
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
sharing who you are with us. And my last question is, how can people reach you?
Okay, they can reach me on my socials, B&S Behavior Consultants on IG.
Hmm.
Um, They can reach me on my LinkedIn, Abiola Ahmed, BCBA. They can also reach me on my websites.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Again, Abiola, thank you so much for being here. It has been
Thank you for having me. It's been a
very well.
pleasure.
And to those of you listening and watching, thank you. And we will see you back here at our next episode.